Hello and welcome to The Hunt, a Predecessor podcast where we try to secure the best opinions and discussions going on in the Predecessor community. With me today is my co-host Penzo. How's it going, my dude?
I'm not doing too bad. Just kind of hanging
Nice.
out, ready to pod some casts, you know.
Pod some casts. Yeah, so obviously like Nerdy Jungler, The Hunt, secure the topics. You get what I'm going for? Like,
Yeah.
it's pretty...
I heard it. I heard it.
You know,
honestly, I thought it was going to be worse.
Yeah, no, you got to lay on the cheese. You got to lay on the cheese a little bit. But as y'all can see today on our overlay, we have a handful of topics. The meat and potatoes discussion is going to take up the majority of today's hour and a half show. Is going to be about Hero Affinity. We're going to talk about post-console development and community, I suppose. Wraith, a Pred top 3 things that me and Penzo want to see for the game or think the game needs, and then the future of Pred, which those kind of go hand in hand. So let's go ahead and jump into it. I have a lot of show notes about the Hero Affinity system, and I have them kind of sectioned off. And when I started it, the way that I was writing my notes was I was writing notes about the last Predcast, and then I realized that like if I just did it in that chronological order, I would lose some of the things that I need to talk about in order. So my notes are a little all over the place, but we're going to keep it to like my little sections. I'll bring up what I have to say. We'll get your back and forth with it and discuss it, and we'll move on to the next section. So my first point, or my first note that I want to talk about on the Affinity system, is the information, or like the tag, or the saying that we got to let us know, the information we got, that Affinity is not their mastery system. It is a challenge-based system that will better reflect your skill on a hero, which is not what Hero Affinity was meant to be. It's kind of like what Robbie was saying in the last Predcast, like, oh, I don't really think that like Affinity and like just playing a lot of the character actually means you're very good at it. And I agree with that, but I disagree that this was like not meant to be mastery. Like I very much so feel like duped by that, and I feel like it's a little disingenuous and kind of like a little bit of a PR play. What are your thoughts on Affinity not being mastery?
I understand where you're coming from, because I think there is a way you can look at this and be like, okay, there's no way they had a second system planned. This is what they wanted to do, and because of the feedback on this, they're saying, well, hey. I think that's definitely a way you can look at it. Personally, I don't know if Robbie had only said this in my chats or what. Like, he'd been talking about tying in achievements to the mastery system for, I'm going to say, at least 2 months ago is the first time that I heard him talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if that was originally supposed to be tied into the Affinity system, and then they were like, shit, that's kind of hard, we're gonna make 2 systems or something like that. I don't know any of that, but Ace had been talking about tying in achievements to mastery in some way, like, for a while. So I'll give him that one.
This kind of brings up a pretty big point of feedback that I have for Ometa, and I want to take a little pause to let everybody know that like the reason I ever say or do anything that I do is just because I think it can help the game and maybe shift perspective and give some solid feedback. So I'm definitely not just trying to hate on the game, but one of the big problems I have with Ometa in general is their communication. And it's not something as simple as just saying like, oh, they don't communicate enough, but sometimes it's like they don't communicate the right things in the right places at the right times. And so, for example, like if you've actually been hearing about this idea of like achievements and challenges in mastery, like nobody else knows this, or like maybe nobody else knows this. And so whenever I get this kind of like response from a meta that comes out and says like, oh, well, this isn't our mastery system, it's like, well, that's bullshit. Like, I don't believe that at all. I think that that's not good, because it feels like a way that they're leaning into the hit that they're taking from the community, and they're trying to like block it or deflect some of the damage and say like, oh, well, no, you just misunderstand. So I have 2 notes on here in this section that I kind of want to touch on specifically with this point of them saying Affinity is not mastery and that mastery is something different, and that they're building out all these systems to build that in or create that system. I think because I don't believe that they're actually making a mastery system. Well, now I believe that they're making it because they've said that they are, but I don't believe that they were ever actually making something like that. I wrote out the best case scenario with this and the worst case scenario. So on my notes, I put best case scenario. They just have really shitty communication and they're misrepresenting their own system while failing to deliver the full system and bigger picture of the system, which is the token acquisition. Like they didn't deliver the entirety of the Affinity system. And it could just be shitty communication because they kind of led us to believe that this was a mastery system. They said in their season 3 roadmap reveal that it was their take on the mastery system. In the system, they explained in their own words kind of what a mastery system is, which is, in quotes, with this system, you'll be rewarded for spending time mastering each hero, end quote, which is still true. And so I think that it's possible that they just have really, really shitty communication. That's like best case scenario for me. Worst case scenario is I think they're just lying. Like they're lying and gaslighting to not be wrong. And that's not the craziest thing to me because like what company hasn't lied to just like get out from under some shit, right? To like, oh fuck, like diversion, like, and so my worst case scenario is that they're just lying to not be too wrong. This was always the plan. They're trying to analyze the data without giving options to see if people will pay or give feedback. Because it's like that perfect sentiment of like, ask for forgiveness, not for permission. If you like put out the worst system and then like see what the response is, then you could be like, oh, we listened to your feedback, we're changing it. And then like, yay, everybody's happy again. So that's like where my mind is like on, that could be the best case scenario. And it's likely that they just miscommunicated, or it could be worst case scenario.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from, and I do think that their communication needs some work. But like for me, I'm trying to think. Like to put it this way, me playing games 5 years ago before I was, actually trying to create real content and like keep up with stuff, I'm trying to think, like, I don't know if I ever cared about a company's communication outside of patch notes, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, that's, like, when I played Smite for, 10 years. For the first 6 of those years, I didn't follow them on Twitter. I didn't look at their blog posts. I didn't watch dev streams. I looked at the patch notes when they went live, right? And so, like, I think communication matters, but communication for me really like at some point it kind of only matters to like those top 10-20% of people that are really really invested in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that in Pred it's so kind of forefront because those 10-20% people are the only people left playing the game.
It's right? Like the player base.
So
yeah,
like that's pretty much everyone.
So on that thought, I would say that like I feel like the same thing, right? Like I want to look back to my days like playing Gears of War on Xbox 360. Super hardcore player, was playing LAN events, flying around the country, but I didn't like care about the game not having a rank system, and I didn't like care about the devs communication because for me at that point it was like such a different time, and so like what mattered back then was different. But I also think that the industry and the culture around gaming, streaming, content creation, esports has changed a lot too. So I would say that that's definitely kind of pushed the bar up, right? Like it raises the bar on,
I would agree,
on these companies. And this is all about a competitive thing between companies, right? Like it's, whenever we talk about Pred, I always bring up Dota and I always bring up League of Legends and I always bring up Smite and, Paragon the Overprime, because these are their competitors. So you have to be able to compete with those. And so I guess like, I'm not saying that they're not doing that with their communication, but like if there are companies out there that have better communication, then you should try to like model after that. So the last point I have in this section, unless you have anything to add, we can move on to the next one with the Hero Affinity, is I put in bold text, Ometa needs to set the expectations better. I've often heard in the community where people will say, well, maybe your expectations are too high. And I could say, yeah, maybe. I think that there's definitely room for me to have my expectations too high. But I also think that a part of the job of being a developer and, creating this live service product is setting the expectations, right? Like it is important for your patches to land and for your content to land. And if the people don't know what they're getting into, I would say that I think that that's a bit of a failure on the expectations being set for the developers. And so that's just, like I said, that feedback there where it's like best case scenario, I think they might have misrepresented the systems that they're building. If there is a mastery system being worked on in this version of the Affinity system, and maybe they can kind of work to clean up some of that communication.
Yeah, I think like my only note is that I think it can be tough for us right now to kind of I'm trying to think of the right way to word this. It can be hard for us to judge the things that they're making right now because let's say, in 2 years, new players joining the game and all those systems are in the game. Maybe there is a mastery system. Maybe there is, this affinity system and they're separate or whatever, right? Or maybe they're combined in some way. Who knows, right? It can be hard for us to judge that because we're seeing them being built as they're coming in, right? Like it is this EA game that is not, Fortnite EA where the game was, basically 100% complete just using the EA tag versus this game that actually is early access and they are still building fundamental things for the game, right? Like you can play the game, but there are a lot of pieces of it that are missing from it being a truly, live service, free to play, ready to go video game.
Yeah, and it's funny because I think that there's like an argument to be had about the EA tag on both sides where it's like literally the game is EA and they're still learning as a company and building out these systems. And at the same time, the game is also, even though it's not free, it is still a live service product. And so you want to like hold them to some of those standards in order to preserve and retain and, show appreciation to the current EA player base. So yeah, I agree with you. Also, I meant to say this at the beginning of the show because I think that this is actually important. While I have so much criticism about this Affinity system, I think that this is so important to make note of. I think that this is maybe the best patch that Pred has had. I like in terms of retaining me as a player and like having me engage with the gameplay that I love. I actually do think that I'm playing more. You can look at my own Meta City and just see I'm just playing games all day long. Like when I have free time, I'm playing Pred. And so on that note, I think that the Affinity system is not like a failure, but we're going to talk about a lot of the issues that I do have with it. And then like so far, we've just mostly touched on like the perception of what the system is and the communication and kind of like selling of the system, once it was out. So
what do you think of like the amount of XP you need? Like, do you think it's correct?
So I have a lot of thoughts about XP with this system, and we're gonna touch on it because one of my
okay? I don't know if that's coming or not.
One of my and I can say it like it's not like a huge spoiler. We're gonna touch on it. One of my huge grievances with the system is the experience boost. So yeah, we're gonna talk about EXP and what it feels like to enact with this system or engage with the system. So second bullet point about the Affinity system is shipping Hero Affinity without tokens. I think that this is probably the biggest I hate using the word failure. It feels a little too big here, but I can't think of a better word. It feels like this is the biggest issue.
This is the biggest issue.
Yeah, the biggest issue with the Affinity system. I'm going to read what I wrote down, and then we'll just engage with it. So I said they shipped an unfinished system because they wanted to give players something to grind and work towards, but the part they left out is pivotal to the system not being exploitable. With FOMO, where you dangle the carrot in front of your player's face and tease them with the premium cost while telling them it's your choice to wait for tokens, which were presumably not until after April post Season 3. This decision is obviously egregious because it eliminates an element of respect from the developers to the player by teasing them with a system they can't fully engage with for months, while putting the responsibility on the player to be strong-willed enough to not spend and just wait. So my big issue with this is obviously the system is incomplete. Like it's actually not done, but I understand the importance of wanting to ship it because it worked. It's giving me reasons to play. That said, when I heard, there was a couple times in the Predcast where I heard a few of y'all on the panel say something like, oh, well, like you can just play it and then like you don't have to buy it now. You can just like pay for it later. And I really like cringe and like hate that point because it's like, yeah, I can, but like, fuck you. I want to be a part of the fun too, right? Like I want to be working for the cool thing and I want to engage with the new cool thing. And also, and like I said, we're going to talk about it, I don't want to be left behind 30% experience. So that whole like notion of like, oh, well, it's free, trust us, it'll be free, right? Like, and it will be. That's the thing. I have no doubt that the token system's coming. I just think it's like a huge lapse in judgment to ship this system without tokens.
Yeah, I mean, that was my biggest gripe with it when they told us that. I mean, I'm just sitting here and I was laying in bed when the blog post came out, and I opened my phone. I'm like, oh, a blog post. I'll give this a brief look. You know, I'll probably make a video going over patch notes. And I read the blog post and I'm like, oh yeah, oh, they're talking about the Affinity system. Yeah, let's look at this. Maybe they've got some more skins in there. Okay, it costs 500 plat. Or you can use a token. Okay, that's cool. I'll just get a token, right? We'll get tokens for free. Oh, tokens aren't in the game till the end of season 3. Like that was the disconnect. Like that was just, that was the entire issue with it for me. I strongly believe that when they get tokens in the game, they put the mastery skins back onto the paid side. Like I think that's what they're going to do, because if they have the tokens in the game, I don't see an issue with it personally. But yeah, it was without the tokens, you were going to be forced to pay, and that was not the way to do it.
That's interesting. I think I would have a lot of issue with that if they did that, but
why? I'm just curious. Now I'm curious.
Well, so a big point of the issue I have with the entirety of the system is that while inherently there is a part of it that has a track for people to engage with it for free, that version of engaging with the system where you just play on it for free, it's not very good. Like it actually sucks to be a free to play player on this system. And I think that
because you don't get anything to show in game.
Well, I mean, if you remove the skin, but not even just because you don't get anything to show in game, but because in order to engage with the system for free, you're forced to waste your own time. You're forced to be limited in who you can play without wasting your own time. And then you also don't get to engage in the content that they've actually built, because the majority of it is on the premium track.
Okay.
So I think that this actually perfectly segues into the second topic, because I kind of everything from here on out is pretty much just going to chain off of each other because it's all related. So the bullet point is it actually just a choice to pay for the system or grind it for free? I said I've put a bit of due diligence in comparing Pred's Affinity system to what I believe is the best competitor to Predecessor, Smite. In Smite, you have the option. I say I did due diligence because I don't touch Smite, so I asked around. I said
I can clarify.
Yeah, exactly. And I asked Soul Reaper, so he clarified. So if I'm wrong, my bad, but I don't think so. In Smite, you have the option.
Soul Reaper's wrong.
Yeah, exactly. So this is what I wrote out. If in Smite, you have the option to spend either free-to-play currency or premium currency to unlock the mastery. However, there is no benefit for either option up front. In Predecessor, there is a looming 30% experience boost for purchasing the premium track immediately. I said, so very, very similarly to my issue with the contract system versus a free-to-play currency system, the Hero Affinity system punishes the player and removes choice from them because of this experience boost. I said, yes, of course, I could grind the system for free, wait for a token, and then unlock it, but I would have done so 30% slower than someone who chose to spend premium currency or someone who allocated a token immediately. This is specifically to drive sales at the benefit of purchasing the premium track immediately, as the benefit of purchasing the premium track immediately will always be the best way to engage in the system, and I imagine we won't have tokens or enough tokens to buy many masteries, so any time played on a hero that is not immediately on your premium track, or that you haven't immediately purchased with the premium track, will come at an experience lost. This issue can be mitigated by only one-tricking heroes you have the premium track for, or by not caring about the experience boost, but I personally care as it expedites my grind for something that I would like to have. So this issue is probably one of the bigger issues I have with this system, where you build these things and you have them for free-to-play players, and you have the option for paid players. That's how these games work. There's always an option, right? Like in most things. But the free-to-play version just fucking sucks. And like, it does. And I had to bring it up again because the thing is I know this conversation's not over. The contract system, it just fucking sucks. Like, it's just not a good system because you punish the free players for not spending money. And this premium track does the same exact thing. If I don't front you money right away, tokens aren't in the game. There's no way for me to get on the premium track unless I grind all of this shit for free now and then jump in on premium later. I just waste my own fucking time. And I think that for a lot of people, this probably won't matter. But for some, it will. And I don't know if that's the majority, the minority, but I think that there are probably people like me that look at like the efficiency of all of these things and like the way to best engage with the system. And they just look at it and they go, oh, that sucks. Like, I don't like right now I'm one tricking Kai. I'm level 6 on his mastery. And any second I spend playing someone else comes at a 30% time loss to me. You can say 30% experience loss because that's literal, but it's my time, right? Like I have a limited amount of time to play any game, to do anything in my life. If I play someone other than Chimera right now, I'm wasting my fucking time. And that system is what you gave to the free players. And again, I think the part of the reason why that's bad is because like this system in perception, the way that I feel like most of us were sold on what it was going to be was like a nod and an appreciation and a thank you to your player base. And that's why so many of us were like confused that it's paid, or that's why I'm confused that it's paid. But also that like the skin was paid too. And again, me being just so jaded, I like fear that like it's just about seeing what you can get away with. And I just like hate that I feel like the free version of this system just isn't very good.
Yeah, I completely see where you're coming from. Like, I do think that the XP boost on it is a little weird. Like, I'm trying to think. Like, what if the system instead was to, and this is just this. I don't think this is something that would ever happen. I'm just curious on your opinion on the difference in systems, which would be like, what if you could spend instead 1,000 plat a month to unlock every premium hero track for that month?
Well, I mean,
like
the
an
tracks
MMO style subscription thing.
Well, the tracks aren't changing, right? Like the premium tracks aren't gonna go away. So it's like,
well,
what
no,
would you
I
do
mean,
after
like
the
it
month?
would essentially, it would, or maybe another way to put it is like, well, then no, I mean, like if you paid 1,000 plat and then for that month you had the 30% like boost plus you could unlock all of the premium stuff for any characters.
So I have a unique rebuttal. What if the entirety of the system was free?
Here's my thing is that I honestly, personally, don't mind them charging for crowns and emotes.
I don't either, if I don't have to sink a ton of time into it either. Like I think the fallacy.
Do you think you should be able to straight up buy crowns like from the shop?
I think that if they expect me to spend a premium currency, then I should get something for it like immediately and not have to spend my time on it, unless it is an intentionally non-hero tied battle pass. Like if you're creating a battle pass that is a progression system that is like broad over the course of like a season, and then you can kind of like implement a healthy amount of FOMO with that, then that's fine, because that is a free-to-play model that works now. But I think that if you're attaching something to a hero that removes player choice because you're not choosing to play that hero, that comes at the benefit of spending premium currency in a system that was kind of like perceptually meant to be in order to retain players and to give thanks to players and appreciate players for playing the game, then it feels intentionally greedy and egregious to me. Because I think that like my biggest question, we're going to get to it, is I'm going to ask this over and over and over again, is why just isn't this system free? Like what was the driving force in not choosing to make the entirety of the system free? Because I don't really see a good answer. I feel like I have
one more question.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Which is, so when they showed in the blog post for the affinities, when they showed it, it was a 15% boost.
Yeah.
Would it make you madder or happier if the 30% was bigger or smaller?
The bigger the boost, the worse it gets.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I thought you were going to say. I was just curious.
Yeah, the higher the boost goes,
it becomes more time wasted.
The more disenfranchised you get from the free to play players, right? Like the more you punish them for not giving you money, and yeah, I think that's not great. Now, I did actually see Survivor it just so happens that this happened today. Survivor was kind of questioning the system in Soul Reaper's stream today, and he was asking like, if I was to play the system, like say I played Bellica for free up to level 5 and then I purchased her premium, do I get backfill an additional 30% experience for then going premium? And I'm pretty sure the answer is no. Like I'm like 99% sure the answer is no. Robbie was in the stream and he said he doesn't believe it worked that way. Somebody else in the stream said that they actually had done a little bit of that.
I wouldn't imagine it does.
I wouldn't imagine it either. But does that not seem like a problem, right? Where it's like, oh wait,
well,
I already invested a bunch of time.
I think that ties into the bigger problem of why didn't we get any kind of retroactive XP, even like 50%. I have 180 games played on Richter.
Yeah,
I don't get 50% of that as XP, right?
Yeah, it's funny because I have so many like issues with the system the way that it is that doesn't even really come up for me. Like it is important.
Really?
It like it does, but it's just so low on the list. Like I agree. I would have been happy with like 15 to 25% just because it feels like hey, we don't want y'all to blow through everything when we just launched it, but we really appreciate you for playing, right? So I agree. I think not backfilling XP on the system at all like sucks because I had 1,600 games played. Yeah. I would have been done with Chimera. Like I would have loaded in, boom, I would have had level 10. Like
I would have been there with Richter.
Yeah, and that's like on free track probably too. Maybe, I don't know. I had 200 Chimera games played. I probably would have been there. So yeah, it does suck to feel like, and again, I think it's so much of this issue that I have with this system, the grievances I have with the system, I really think that it's like 60% communication and then like a small percentage of like not actually building it very well or planning it very well. Because the reason why I feel, for lack of a better word, and I'm speaking for myself, but I'm also speaking kind of like, I think I'm speaking for free-to-play players, is it just like as a system that like was meant to finally give the game content, it was finally meant to be like oh my god, like we have something to work for and like think like and to like appreciate the players for their time, it's still like exploited. And so again, like, and it's literally going to come up in the notes later too. It's like, why the fuck wasn't this free? Like, I can't think of, like, I can literally give you answers, but I don't like the answers. And my two like personal answers, if I was really trying to hypothesize why they put a cost on this at all, is one, they're getting investor pressure to see returns, which I really doubt it because this system's not going to make them a lot of money. Or two, they're trying to recoup some of the money that they invested through spending time and money, like spending time and effort on it, to kind of like pay themselves back a little bit for the time and effort that they spent on it. Which, do I think that the work they did was good? Absolutely. Do I think that developers should be compensated for creating content in a game? Absolutely. But not when you put it in this particular system. And so, like I said, if this was a battle pass that was like overarching for the entirety of the game, I'd be fine with it. If this was content that was specifically sold in the store, I'd be fine with it. It's just the fact that it's this system that makes it feel so shit. And the fact that the system itself is actually kind of shit. Like it just wasn't the system wasn't supposed to be this. And I think like anybody that has played a lot of free-to-play games or that can engage with these kinds of systems that are like really good for a player base can look at it and be like, yeah, this wasn't what it was supposed to be.
Yeah, I mostly agree. I think that, again, in my opinion, the things like crowns and even the jump pad and recall effects, I think that stuff and the emotes, honestly, I don't mind that those are in the paid side. It really doesn't bug me. They're completely cosmetic. Again, even though they're on the paid side, it's not like you can pay to boost it. So it's just a representation of time played. I think, if the mastery system thing has other cool things in it, then that would be cool. But I think that brings other issues. If you're locking cool things behind achievements, then instead of your free to play versus paid player debate, it becomes a good players versus bad players debate on who can actually unlock items. Are there other issues? Yeah, I think there are other issues. But I don't know. I don't hate this system the way it's put into the game.
It's funny because we're sitting here talking about this whole thing based on the information we have. And a part of me, I sit down and I think about all this and I think maybe I don't have the bigger picture, because I don't know what they're building. And so like maybe the mastery system comes out and solves a lot of these issues. But I have issues with that, for one, because if you're putting out things publicly, like you're putting them out to the world, you have to know that you're going to get criticism about what you actually delivered on, like what you actually put out there. So this criticism comes from what we have. I've spoken a lot about the tokens, and I will talk about the tokens here in another point. And the reality is that we don't have all the information on the tokens. Like we don't exactly know every system that they're going to be tied into, exactly how you get them, how frequently we get them. And so all of this to say, like, if the mastery system does come out, it's amazing and it solves all these problems, and then bigger picture, it's none of this is an issue at all because of that. It comes down to the communication, because it's like, well, the expectations have to be set in order for me to understand what's happening, in order for me to understand what you're actually trying to build. And so I think when you put out this system the way that it's put out, it leaves opportunity for you to damage yourself by not having been more clear, or not having released it more completed, or not having explained why the system is the way that it is in lieu of the system that's coming after. And so, yeah, like I feel like I'm looking at a narrow view of what may be to come, but at the same time, this is all I got, so I have to speak on it.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because it's the same thing. I mean, it's such a double-edged sword. I mean, we've been talking about it on Predcast for the last 2 weeks too, which is just like, if they overshare and on like what they want to do, and then something that they want to do doesn't work exactly the way that they said it and they put it in, people will be mad.
Yeah.
But then if you don't say those things that you're planning on doing and then put them in and people don't like them, now people are mad still, right? So like it really is a double-edged sword.
Yeah, and I think it all just comes down to like criticism should come at all stages on what is there and fair to criticize. Like I think if I was a true hater, I would be sitting here saying like, this shit sucks, I hate it, I can't believe they did this. And I am kind of saying that, but at the same time, I'm gonna step on that note again, where I say this is still the best patch that I think Pred has ever had. I'm still playing more games than I've played in months prior. I still appreciate the fact that they made the change they made, because I think that it wouldn't have been that hard for them to just be like, fuck you guys, right, and just keep it the same exact way they had it. So I'm going to go ahead and move into the next point, which I have a very small bullet point. It's the quickest bullet point there is. And it says, small note to say that I think having tokens being backfilled for the experience that we're gaining this season is great. This is mutually beneficial for the players as a time to reward system. That's a solid decision, because it's the correct decision. It was the decision, but it was also a decision they didn't have to make, right? Like technically anybody can do anything. So I just want to, but again, I don't want to be the person that only ever complains about the game. I want to make sure that like I don't glaze over the things that are good, because they are good. Like coming out with a system, hearing feedback, moving the skin to free, good. The system giving us something to play for, good. The tokens being backfilled for the time that we've played throughout the season, good. All of these things are great. The patch itself, the actual patch, good. It was a good ass patch. Like the content that came with it. I liked it, right? Is it the best patch? I think because of everything that came out, it made the product feel more whole. Like, more shit that you can put on your profile and put on your card when you're loading it. It just made the product feel more real. And so that's why I'm saying, like, if the Affinity system didn't have some of these issues, it would have been a fucking grand slam for sure.
Yeah, I think like for me, my main issue with like this patch is mostly the fact that we don't get another one for 2 more weeks.
Yeah.
Like that's my primary issue with it, because like, was the patch good? Yeah, it had some good stuff in there. Am I an Affinity grinder? No, that's not really my thing.
Yeah.
So like that didn't do much for me,
All right. The next point is Affinity tokens will only be used for Hero Affinity. This was stated during the Predcast. I want to make sure, I've seen confusion about this, so I want to make sure that I'm very clear on this. The Affinity tokens are not a free-to-play currency. They are, but they're only for Affinity. So this is what I wrote in my notes. I've seen a bit of confusion on this point, so I just wanted to clarify that the Affinity tokens are not a free-to-play currency for the game, but only a free-to-play currency for the Affinity system itself. If the intention is to create a system that can be earned for free, then what is the point of the token? This is speculative, as we don't have the full understanding of the tokens and how they will work, but I assume that the token's primary purpose is to slow a player's progression in the Affinity system, which would also drive sales. And I put in parentheses that 30% XP boost, for example. And I said, meta, clarification. Essentially, we don't exactly know how the tokens are going to be earned in totality. We don't have them. We don't know when we're getting them. If the tokens are working in a way that we've heard where it's like it's attached to your player level, I'm glad that they're backfilled. But the reality behind them being attached to your player level is that as your level increases, you earn them slower and slower and slower, because as your level increases, the experience to gain them increases. And if the point of the system is to make it free and to make it earnable for free, again, why is the system paid at all? So I just wanted to clarify that the tokens are not for other systems. They're just for the Affinity.
Yeah. It's not like I've heard that argument. Well, they're
Yeah.
adding a free-to-play currency with tokens.
No,
not really.
Mm-mm. You can't unlock other content. You can't.
It's a token worth 500 platinum, except you can only spend it on one thing. So
and again, I really, man, it was one of the things that like made me angry when I heard, on Predcast, it's the sentiment of like, oh, well, if you don't want to pay for it now, just unlock it later. It's like, yeah, you force me to be a window shopper and like not have fun while everybody else is having fun with it, and it's at a 30% experience loss. Meme. Yeah, it's literally the Squidward meme, and I'm wasting 30% of my time every time I play the game. So, my next point is, did putting the skin on the free track, in quotes, fix the Affinity system? I said yes and no. The goal of the Affinity system was to give a time grind system to the player base that feels rewarding. Technically, this has been achieved, but not very well. IMO, the decision to move the skin to the free track was the bare minimum response that they could have taken to not lose players. If it is a good thing that they made, is it a good thing that they made this change? Yes, absolutely. But it shouldn't have needed to be made if the Affinity system was free in totality. But why would they do that? So this point is where I start to kind of step on the gas a little bit about the point of, why the fuck isn't this just free? Like, I don't understand why this system needed to be monetized, why it is monetized. And when I was happy, I literally said like, hey, you know what? They put the skin on the free track. I'm not happy, but I'm appeased. That's how I feel. Because yeah, I have something to go after now. So cool. I have something to play for. But it's like the fact that they did it at all. Like the fact that they're in my mind, because they're not dumb. I don't think I'm dumb. I think there's no way in hell that they were releasing this system not expecting backlash. And it was just about like, well, how much backlash will we get? And what are our contingencies for each level of backlash, right? And so I think that like, because they put it out in worst case scenario, all they had to do was like throw us a bone to kind of appease us and make us happy. But it didn't fix the system. They did the bare minimum.
Can I just like clarify, when you say that the whole system should be free, do you mean like emotes, crowns, everything?
I mean that there should not be a premium cost that is gating content. Like all of the content should be in it for free. There should not be a cost on it. And if there is a cost on it, they need to remove the 30% experience boost from it.
So would you like make it twice as long and put all of the cool stuff in the second half then?
I don't think it matters how long it is, unless it's just like way too easy to get through.
Because like my point is like, again, for me personally, like the crowns, emotes, launchpad effects, etc., like that stuff, I really don't mind being paid. Like me personally, I don't care about it enough to pay for it. But like that kind of stuff, I think like that falls into skin category for me.
Yeah,
like if skins are paid, I don't care about crowns.
Okay, well, let me put it this way: wouldn't it be dope to be able to earn it for free just because you play the game?
I would love to earn everything for free, but that's not like feasible.
Why not? There are plenty of games that give you the option to earn everything for free just by playing the game.
like every skin in the game.
Yeah, it's going to take a metric fuck ton of your time, so it's unlikely that you'll actually do it, but it's about choice, right? It's about respecting your community and giving them the ability to actually do something if they spend the time. This is a point that Soul Reaper brings up quite often, where it's like, if the system is getting a player to play that much fucking games of their game, and then in return they actually do unlock some stuff for it, the system did its job. Because the value of being a game developer, or like the return on what you're doing as a game developer, doesn't just have to come in the form of revenue or profit. It can come in the form of retaining a player as a word of mouth marketer. It can come in the form of retaining a player to then push into the matchmaking. It can come in the form of boosting your overall player count, which looks good on in, like, you know, reporting numbers and things like that. It's like, just because you have a player, like, let me ask you this much: is a player that spends $0 in the game, playing the game every day, good or bad for the game?
Yeah, I mean, obviously that's a good thing. I'll play along, but obviously that's a good thing.
Yeah, so then you shouldn't treat them like it's a bad thing. You know what I mean? Like, you shouldn't treat the player like it's a bad thing, because if you do, that player could look at your product and look at a different product and be like, I'm gonna go play something else. And some will and some won't. That's just the reality of it. I also want to make this point too, because I meant to say this at the very beginning. I don't think that this is existential. I don't think that this will kill the game. I don't think that this is going to have some crazy negative effect on the game, but I think that it could. Like, I think that not having systems that are good for the free-to-play player has the potential to drive the free-to-play player base down. And so it's like, it inherently feels more greedy than it needs to be, when you could make it more mutually beneficial for the free-to-play player base and for the developers in terms of like revenue and profit.
Yeah, I mean, I do understand. For me personally, I don't mind if a game is monetized properly. I really don't.
Well, that's
Like,
my
if I gotta pay
problem.
for skins, go for it, you know?
See, that's my
I
thing.
do
I think
agree
that the
with you
game
that a
isn't.
lot of things in Predecessor are not monetized properly. Agree.
So I guess my problem is that, like, I feel like almost everything in Predecessor is monetized improperly. From the way that you
agree.
like everything, right? So here's the thing: if you have a game, I feel like you can earn being greedy. I feel like you can earn the right to be greedy as a developer, because if you have a game that is firing on all cylinders, it's got cosmetics that are fucking dope, it's got the, you know, really sick grind, sick rewards, and if it has all of these pieces, then it's like, yeah, you kind of deserve the ability to be greedy. You know, look at Valorant, for example. But if you haven't like earned it, I think that you need to focus on earning it, right? And that's like both with the game and with the systems that you give the players to play with to begin with. I'm gonna go ahead and jump to the next one, because I do think that we're like this one is taking This is taking a lot of time.
Go for it.
I said, what is the goal of creating a product or service? 1, meet the customer needs, and 2, generating profit. I said, in regards to the Hero Affinity system, I would put this under meeting customer needs over the need for a meta to generate profit. It is common for businesses to operate certain parts of their company at a loss for a return somewhere else. In this vein of thinking, I liken the Hero Affinity system to that of marketing. Had they produced the V0.12 patch simultaneously released the Hero Affinity system for free, it would have been the greatest patch the game has ever seen, void of controversy, void of loss of trust and perceptional damage to Pred/Ometa, and would have served very well at adding to the word of mouth marketing of the game. My point is that, like, had they never built this behind a paywall at all, this would have been the biggest grand slam that they ever would have hit ever. And it's like, it would have been so good for the game, because all of that trust that's been slowly dwindling over the early access that we've had, it would have been rejuvenating for us, right? It would have been so good to finally be like, oh, thank you. They respect me as a player. They care about this game. Like, they're doing something right. And instead they fucked it up again, you know? Like, that's how I feel. Like, they had it, the ball was going into the fucking hoop, and then they forgot that they accidentally wiped like a layer of shit on the ball, and it's too big to fit through the hoop. And it's like, and then it bounces off. And it's like, God, dude, like, you're so close, man. You're so close to hitting it and to getting the plot, and you just don't, man. You just didn't do it again.
Yeah, I mostly agree. I understand like the grievances. I mean, I think, if it was free, obviously it would have landed better,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I understand like yeah, like I've worked with my mother, who my mother works for a company who produces a couple of Netflix shows. And they operate those Netflix shows at a loss. They
Mm-hmm.
do not make money filming for Netflix. They make money by using Netflix to push them to buy the products that they make at the rest of their companies. That is what they like. That is where their money comes from. It does not. They do not make money on Netflix. I understand that. I think that this is something that makes people play the game more. Like that, especially like I think the one thing that Predecessor has over top of Smite is that Predecessor's mastery skins or these affinity skins are banger. Like
Yeah.
right, most of them at
Most of
least
them.
are
Yeah.
really good. And they like Smite's mastery skins or they're whatever, I don't even know what they're called anymore. But like they're okay, but they're not as good as any other skin for that character, right? So it's like they do have this edge where you want to grind for these skins. Like I don't go into a Smite match and I'm like, damn, I really got to hit Diamond Bakasura to get a Baka skin because the Diamond skin slams. Like no.
And for
But
what
in
it's
this
worth,
game,
I actually think that like the mastery skins shouldn't be the best skins for the hero, because if the system was free, you would be operating that system at a loss to the studio in terms of revenue and profit and time that they spent building the system, but you would be retaining players, or hopefully retaining players, by giving them a good system and reasons to play the game, to then have them potentially invest in content that you have in your store. And I think this is another
yeah.
perfect way to kind of slide into the next topic on the Affinity system, which I put in quotes: our goal isn't to monetize. I said, this is where the main point of my argument against the system will come in. If the goal is not to monetize, then why was it monetized at all? Now, I believe that I can answer this question, but I'd be open to hearing from a meta on their response as well. The goal of monetizing this system was because they believe the time and effort they spent creating the system is a fair trade-off for the presented cost. And while I don't 100% disagree, I believe that they lost the plot on why a truly free time grind system is good for the player base and the game at a financial loss to the studio. Again, I liken this a lot to marketing, because creating a truly player-focused retention-based system would have paid dividends in the way of player retention, reinforced trust, and a desire to invest in cosmetics via the in-game store at a premium cost, because the player feels respected and appreciated. Our GS Ace on the recent Predcast also discussed wanting to create a fair trade-off for players who don't want to spend the time, maybe don't have the time, who wants to speed up the process. This inherently goes against the prestige of actually spending the time, putting in the work, and unlocking the content at the benefit of recouping some of the cost of creating the system. This iteration of the hero affinity system is a jack of all trades, but a master of none. Because if it is not free, it will perform worse as a retention system and a nod to the players. Had the entirety of it had been free, and as a profit generating opportunity, well, it falls short there as well, because the dollar amount for the content isn't weighted well for a meta either. The content that they boxed up in the affinity system, it's good content, but it's honestly worth more than $5. So as a profit generating system, it's not very good. And as a retention based system for like the free to play player, or for people that just want to play the game and grind the shit, it's not very good either. So I think that they just fucked up, right? Like, had they boxed all this content up,
they just missed.
I think they missed the plot on it. I think they missed the point of why the system was supposed to be good to begin with, because had they just boxed all the content up and sold it in the store as a bundle, yeah, I'd have paid for it. That's cool. But the fact that they didn't do that, and the fact that it disrespects the player's time, or like, it doesn't disrespect, it devalues the player's time who chooses not to pay for it right up front. And, the fact that it's like, I lost my last point there, but the fact that it just like doesn't quite make sense to say that the point isn't to monetize the game right now, but every single way that you can engage with this game has monetization on it. Like, to get in,
yeah,
to buy heroes if you don't have them all, to purchase content, to engage with the entirety of the affinity system. There's literally not a piece of this game that isn't monetized in some way.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's a little weird that they've said like our goal is not to monetize yet, and then put things in for monetization. It's just I like, to me it just feels like a disconnect. Like, it feels like the game that Ace is playing or looking at is the game that we will have in 6 months. And so when he comes back to say stuff to us, it's just like literally disconnected, right? He's like, he's looking at this with systems in it and etc., right? And then what he says to us when we don't have all the systems in and stuff like that, it just literally, it doesn't make sense to us. There is an actual disconnect there. That's how it feels.
And again, I think that comes from poor communication, or just the fact that actually getting this stuff up is taking so damn long. Like I think that there is a literal understanding to the game being tagged early access. We kind of touched on this, right? Like, it is literally early access, but at the same time, it's been a live service product for 11 months. Like, at some point, the early access of it kind of like, it's almost like early access dwindles in what it means. Like, the longer you sit in early access, the less and less I'm going to give a fuck that the game's early access. Like, I'm sorry. I can't be bothered to care playing your game for a year when I could have literally spent that time doing something else. Now, here's the thing. That's not a threat. I don't think that I wasted my time. I feel very happy that I've invested in this game and that I feel like I can provide feedback and engage with this community. But at the same time, like, I want to hold them to the fire a little bit, and I want to challenge their perspective on these systems and the way that they're developing the game and the decisions they're making, because I think the game is special, because I think that this game could rival Smite, because I think that this game has a big chance to be something big. And so, yeah, it just kind of like sucks to see like a blunder after a blunder after a blunder. And then, like I said, they had like a grand slam and then it just didn't hit. So, I'll keep us moving. I said, in quotes, my next bullet point, once we add the token system, you can earn it for free. We kind of touched on this one already. I said, you see the issue with this, right? The initial goal. Yeah, my bad, I wrote this wrong. Your initial goal wasn't to release the tokens till at least April. How was this a suitable way to release the system? All the while, anyone who wants to truly engage in the system between now and the token release date is forced to spend money or lose 30% EXP boost on all of their games, and I put in parentheses, time, while also being forced to be a window shopper. It's disrespectful and devaluing to those who are playing the game. And you can touch on that if you want, or I can just read my final point. And
I think we touched on it.
Yeah, all right. Closing statements for me.
I don't think I have anything bad.
Yeah, closing statements for me on the Affinity system. I said, if you want to generate revenue or profit, you need to produce paid content in the store. But if you want to grow your game, give your players something to grind for and play for, rebuild and reinforce faith and trust in Omega Studios, and ultimately retain players, then you need to build solid retention systems that don't exploit them for money when you already have the means of generating revenue via the in-game store. The developers always have to consider the opportunity cost of their decisions. Yes, releasing the Affinity system with a premium track can help recoup some finances from the hard work that they put in building the system, but I would argue you would see a better long-term result from building a system to appreciate and invest in your players, to have them become strong word-of-mouth marketers, retained players, and hopefully paying customers. So again, I just think it's like they missed the plot on actually just investing in the players, right? They looked at the time and effort that they spent building the system, and they thought, yeah, we deserve something for that.
Well, so my question is, and I know this is something you've said in the past, do you think this ties into them just kind of not caring about EA players?
Yes.
Okay.
I truly believe they don't give a fuck about the EA player base, right? Like it's weird because yes, they do, of course, right? Like, that's extreme. They care, but they don't care enough to make decisions for the EA player base. They care enough to follow their outline, whatever that is, to get to free to play.
8 months ahead.
Exactly.
For when it's free to play.
They're looking at that free to play release, and they're saying, like, however we get there, whoever we burn between now and then, like, fuck them. They'll probably come back and play anyways. Maybe, who cares? We need to retain the people that come in when all this shit's done. And I think that like, again, that's also like part of like missing the plot, because the people that are playing now are like the people that like really care, because we're 11 months in, and like these are the people that really want to engage with your system. So that's my final thought on the Affinity system. I just feel like they swung and a miss, and it was it's still good, in my opinion, the best patch the game has seen, but it could have been so much better. And
agree. I like that.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to probably blow through these next topics because we're getting close to our time and we don't want to run too much over. But post-console development. So, post-console development, in quotes from RGSA, it should speed things up. Is that happening? Yes or no?
No.
Yeah, no, right?
No, not at all.
I don't think so either. So, I mean, that's pretty much all I had to say on it. Like, I just feel like, fool me once, you know what I mean? Like, fool me once, shame on me.
Yeah. Those words are just beyond meaningless to me now.
Well, I think words are beyond meaningless to me right now, right? Like it's like
I
actions.
I somewhat disagree. I think words have some meanings, but the words "it should speed up" are just absolutely lost on me.
That's fair. Yeah.
I like those words literally in one ear, out the other. I just honestly don't say it anymore at this point.
I just feel like I've been told that before about a particular UI or something, and so
I've been told that 10 times about 10 different things in Pred.
Yeah.
And none of them were true.
And also, just for the sake of saying, we don't technically know when console's coming out. We're shooting for December, but you don't really know. So I think that like with all of the delays that the game has had, not just console, but just like with everything that's happened, if they don't nail December console, like, God damn it, dude. Like, it's just another thing, right? So we'll see. We'll see when console actually hits. And those were my thoughts on post-console development. Wraith, what do you think about Wraith? Good, bad, good for the game, strong AD carry, bad AD carry? What are your thoughts?
I think he's fine. I think he's fairly strong right now. I think the one thing that Wraith has going for him that a lot of other characters in the game don't have is that he has a variety of builds that you can build. And okay, let me asterisk this, because when I say variety of builds, what I really mean is a variety of 5th items that he can build that are all good.
Okay.
I think that there are like 3 or 4 items that you basically have to build every game, but then he has some other things you can build on him. And I think that's like kind of cool. Otherwise, I wish he didn't have a lock on.
Is he
I think the rest of his kit takes skill. I don't like that his ult is a lock on.
Is he a carrier or is he a mid laner?
Oh, he's a mid laner.
He's a mid laner. Okay, cool.
Please don't play him in the carry role.
So here's my thoughts. Until today, literally until today, I literally thought he was like the worst character in the game. And the only thing that changed...
You only played him in carry?
No, I haven't played him at all. I don't play him. But I just have seen how he performs. The only thing that changed my opinion was playing with Soul Reaper, because Soul Reaper played him well. And I was like, oh shit, he's actually pretty strong. But I think that he might be like... So who do you think is the highest skill ceiling character in the game minus Wraith, if that even would matter to you?
Wraith is not at the top of my list.
Who would you put up there? Because I have like a couple in my mind of who I think are the higher ones.
Thinking, I'm gonna say Feng Mao or Xeris.
Those are literally my two. I think that Xeris and Feng Mao are like two of the highest skill ceiling characters in the game. I actually think Wraith is like right below them, because if you're not really good at positioning with him and landing your snipes, you are useless, dude. That character does nothing. And I've had a couple of games recently where not so great people played him, and not so great people played him mid and in carry. And dude, I'm talking like 8k damage rates, like 30 minutes, 8k damage rates. And I'm
that
like,
character,
oh
that has to be one of the
dude.
Easier characters to farm in a game playing against a Wraith.
Oh, dude, I'm playing Chimera. I'm playing Chimera.
Okay,
you know how Faye gets hard countered by Chimera? It's the same thing, dude.
Same thing.
Like, I just run at you, and I'm like, oh, hey, you ulted me. Pop my cleanse. Like, and dude, so like for me, today I was like, I even tweeted it this morning. I was like, I think this character's like bottom 2 character in the game, and now I don't think so. I think he's like pretty solid mid laner. Obviously, the issue with him being a mid laner is that like you lose magic damage on your team somehow, unless you compensate for that. So that kind of sucks. But I think he's like a solid mid laner. I think the really high skill players will bring the most out of him. But I don't think he's a carry like at all. I don't see the kit. I don't see the kit being used in that way. So
yeah, my only the one issue that I think Wraith brings to the game, and this isn't really Wraith's fault, but is that people, because Wraith is a carry and because he's seeing like success in the middle lane, people are figuring out that carries are like as good at playing mid lane as mid laners are.
Dude, I had a triple carry
that
game
is
the
just
other day.
I played my first game on this morning. It was against 3 carries.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, it's just becoming so frustrating. It's just like, I don't know. It just turns the whole game into TDM.
Yeah.
And I just think that's really boring.
I mean, I'll go ahead and rip the Band-Aid off. I think carries are broken and have been broken.
They have
for
been.
All of EA. And...
Tell me the last time that a good carry item was nerfed. Tell me the last time a carry item that's not named Viper was nerfed. I mean, come on. Like, please, dude. Just nerf any of the good carry items.
Yeah.
It's just so frustrating.
Carries are pretty bonkers, but Yeah, that's our thoughts on Wraith. So the next one...
Yeah, Reaper just said it in chat. TB, Drongo, and Murdoch are 3 of the top 5 best mid laners.
That's actually
Agree.
so crazy.
True.
That's actually so crazy. I mean, not to mention, like, obviously this is like skill issue, but like if you throw a carry in off lane against like a maybe not so great off laner, they're just gonna farm them.
It's a skill check. If you're not playing Steel,
it definitely is.
If you're not playing Steel, carries dominate most other like solo laners, and I will say that it is a bit of a noob check. I do agree with you, but like even if you're a solid offlaner, if you're playing against another good offlaner on a carry, it's difficult. It is hard. If you're not... Steel is the one character that can get away with doing whatever he wants against carries. But it's just, like, it's... Again, and I could fix it in one patch. I'm not going to lie. And yet they won't fix it. So...
All right, Penzo, what are the top 3 things that Pred needs, in your opinion?
Hey, speaking of fixing broken-ass carries... The number one thing that this game needs is an increased auto attack move speed penalty.
Interesting.
I strongly believe, I was talking about it on stream today, I think that has surpassed new map for me on my list of things that the game needs. I think it needs that before it needs a new map. And part of that is because they've already been so resistant to adding a new map. They're just like, we're not adding a new map in the next 10 months, so shut up about it. So that's part of it, but I think that's jumped to number 1. Number 2 is new map, and number 3 is new items.
Interesting. It's so interesting how, because it's funny that like I meant to clarify a little bit, but like it doesn't have to necessarily be like things like literally in the game, because a couple of mine I think.
No, I think that's here. Okay, so I think it's good that you clarify that, because that brings me to a separate point.
Okay.
Which is that I think the game itself is being neglected. And if you look at day 1 predecessor footage from EA, that is December 1st, and you look at the game now, it is the same.
Yeah, looks exactly
and
the
I
same.
think that's a bummer. I think the gameplay itself is being neglected. They're adding a bunch of new systems and all this stuff, blah, blah, blah. Sure, I think that's cool. But like the actual gameplay hasn't changed, and I think that's a bummer.
I've actually heard Soul Reaper say something similar where it's like, he made a feedback post recently giving kind of like
his feedback post was banger. I agreed with everything in it.
Yeah, and he gave all that feedback giving his thoughts because it was like, I think that people have forgotten to maybe criticize some of the lack of actual gameplay changes because there's just so many other things to talk about as well. But it is interesting to hear.
It's actually crazy how much me and Reaper say the exact same things, and then people literally flame me for it. And
it's all about the delivery, dude. Trust me. I'll tell you, dude.
Reaper off for it.
So
we have the same. We have like I'm gonna say 80% of the time we have the exact same delivery on the things we're saying. That's the thing. I'm honestly baffled at it. I really don't understand. That's a whole different debate. But it does baffle me sometimes.
Okay.
Krashy, don't do that. No.
I didn't think you were going to see that one.
Because we do. I was sitting in Reaper's stream the other day, and you know what he did? He DM'd me a clip of him getting run down by a Grux who autoed him 10 times while he was running away, and the Grux was holding W mouse 1. You know what? That is what he did. He was livid about it in his stream. It was different than something that would happen in my stream.
You know what's funny about your point on like movement speed penalty is that me being like, this is literally my first third-person MOBA. I have no frame of reference on this, so like it could be a good idea, and I would definitely be down to try it. But I actually don't have an opinion on it. Like I would feel ignorant to say like, oh, I think that's a bad idea, because I have no fucking clue what it plays like. So I'm actually, I think it's an interesting one.
In Unite, do you not stop moving to auto attack?
I mean, yeah, but that's every top-down MOBA, so I guess that makes sense in the sense that you need a slowdown for a game that wouldn't stop you to attack.
It's almost the same mechanic as slowing down to use autos.
I think that's the first time I've ever heard it put that way. That makes sense to me. I like I said, I would definitely be
interested. Because League players have the same gripe. In League, you don't get to run someone down the lane 100 to 0 them with autos because you have to stop moving, and they don't.
Yeah. All right, so my top 3, just to dive into it quickly. Number 1 is a casual game mode. Now, I know that we're getting one, but it used to
be like number 4 for me.
It's funny because I feel like it used to be like number 5 for me until I heard Soul Reaper talk a lot more about it, and I was like, you know what, dude? I think like the irony is it's not something I even really want to play much of, but I think it's something that the game needs because we don't really have the player base, and like different matchmaking to separate
console.
the grinders.
Console.
Yeah,
console players want. If you look at Smites,
Mhm.
the amount of console players in Smite that play Conquest, which is the 5v5 MOBA game mode, it is not very high.
Yeah.
The vast majority of Smite console players play casual game modes exclusively.
Yeah, and this isn't meant for me to say like, oh, we need this. Like, I can't believe they're not working on it. It's like, I know that they're working on a game mode. I'm just putting it at the top of the list for the sake of conversation. Like, I think for me, I love that idea. I love the thought of me being able to quickly hop on and play a little bit. Sometimes I don't have the mental to play normal games right now. And
that's what I'm saying.
and
yes.
My problem too, and this is, I say it like this, my problem is that I'm an inherently competitive person. I can't turn it the fuck off. Like, I watch Soul Reaper and he's just clowning around, having a good time all the time. I'm high strung. My blood pressure's through the fucking roof. I'm frustrated. The matchmaking pisses me off. Like, so sometimes I need to be able to still play because I want to play, but I need to play like in a different fucking arena. Like, I need to be able to chill. And so, yeah, that's the number one on my list. Number two is I want, and this is not something that's in game. I want better communication from a meta. And I want to be very clear on this one. I don't think that it's like, usually when people say that, like, oh, the devs, they don't communicate well, or people will say like they don't communicate. It's not that y'all don't communicate. I think that sometimes maybe y'all are overly eager, or you get too excited and you like say shit that you don't like have any business saying, or you promise things in the way that you couldn't deliver on. And I know it's not intentional, but this is part of the learning process, right? Like, if this is an early access game, then I think that the feedback to say like, I think that your communication could be more intentional, more accurate, and maybe if necessary, even more frequent or less frequent when the time calls for it, to better serve the player base. Because, for example, like when they were about to do the post about console, it was like, oh, we have a post coming, and then they delayed it, and oh, we're going to do it tomorrow, and then they delayed it, and then the post was about them delaying console. And I just think like all of that just feels so bad that it was kind of like, I think if you don't really have things to say, like that you're certain of, then maybe it actually is best to not say anything at all, even though it feels like a nice thing to be like a community, open development kind of dev team where you're talking to people all the time, you're hanging out in streams and stuff, and I love that part of it. But I do think that the communication could be better. So that's my number two. And number three is experimentation with Pred. I think that this is probably one thing that I've been very confused about with Pred Early Access, is that they don't really try things very much. Like, I want them to do a week where they say, hey, this whole week we're going to do nothing but pick ban games, and they test their pick ban system and they see how it works. What is the data that comes from that? How do people like playing in a system like that? And again, it's early access, so if somebody doesn't like pick ban, maybe they just don't play for a week, but you tried it, right? I want them to throw crazy changes in early access where they're just trying things. Like, they say, hey, you know what, for the next 2 weeks we're doing movement speed penalty on autos. I want them to do like, or
what, like, I really like that. Sorry, not to hijack your point,
absolutely.
But like, I think you can extend it further than that. I mean, what if it was like, for the next 2 weeks, Fangtooth spawns at 7 minutes, and we're seeing how this affects early jungle patterns, or red buff spawns at 1 minute instead of 1:25. Like, I mean, even little things like that can change the game a lot, right?
Yeah, and I was like, I mean, Soul Reaper kind of got to it before me, but like, change the map for a little bit, like throw in a map patch for a month if that's more adequate, right? And say, hey, we want to see what the feedback is on the map, right? Soul Reaper's had this idea for the Fang and Prime pits that I love for so long, where that wall that's right behind blue buff at Prime. Yeah. Open that wall up, like open that wall up and make stairs that come down. So you have multiple points of entry, and you have a verticality factor to the pit. Or, change the walls in, left and right river where they're curved and they kind of block off that line of sight, and you have to kind of like wiggle around it a little bit to get to the lane that you're walking towards. So like, just be more willing to throw something in the game because this game isn't finished yet, right? Like, because the expectation that we're playing the same game every single day, the same exact way every single time, shouldn't necessarily be there, because you're testing things out, and then grab feedback from it. You know, lots of people are gonna love it. Some people are gonna hate it. Lots of people are gonna hate it. Some people are gonna love it, depending on what the change is. But I think that you should be more willing to try things out and just like see what the fuck fits, right?
I think it'd be
make
sweet.
it to where Sevarog can dash upward and Shinbi can dash
or
upward,
Kira, right?
Yeah.
For the next, week, Kira's ultimate does full damage to minions, right? Does that actually impact the way she plays? Does it let you split push harder because you can clear one free wave of minions instantly, right? Like, there's a lot of little shit you can do.
Yeah. All right. So let's move into the last topic, and then we'll hit our like ending note. Pinzo, does Predecessor have a chance at being a successful game free to play in the MOBA market?
A chance, yes. Big chance, as of right now, I'm on the fence.
Mm-hmm. So I put this point in here because I think that, like, a part of this is kind of like to serve me as the person in the community that I've built myself to be, where, I'm like the hater and the doomsayer and yada, yada, yada. And I definitely get that way. And I can take, accountability and responsibility for that. But the reality is that my answer is yes. I think that this game has a chance because the gameplay is there, because they have a niche in the MOBA market, and because they're doing something that's an inherently uphill battle in two different ways. They're bringing back a game that was loved, right? That's hard to do. And you can't really just bring it back because you have to make it work. And you're entering the MOBA genre in 2023. You're like over a decade behind. So it was always going to be an uphill battle. And the fact that I'm still here playing it 11 months later, and the fact that there are people that are interested in it and pay attention to it and ask about console, that answers the question for me. I absolutely think that the game has a chance. I think that it's an uphill battle. I think that a lot of things need to change in the way that the game is being run and developed and the decisions that are being made. But I absolutely think that this game has a chance. And I think that it truly does have a chance to become like one of the mainstays in the MOBA genre.
Yeah, I would love to say that it's going to be the best game or whatever, but like a lot of that for me is looking at the potential of what they're trying to make, which is a very cool idea. A three-dimensional MOBA that has shooter mechanics in it and all that kind of stuff. That would be really, really cool. But what they're giving us in my opinion, is not quite delivering on that, to be completely honest.
I think so. So it's funny that you say that, because I agree in the aspect specifically about the Z-axis. Like, I think the major selling point of Pred over Smite, for example, is the Z-axis. Crank that dial. Find
what
a
I'm
way
playing
to
right
crank
now
that
is
dial.
Smite with hills.
I agree. Yeah, I can't speak to Smite, but I think that like the verticality, the ability to engage with the game vertically with what's in it already shows so much promise in how you could have verticality in it. Actually, you know what? Go watch one game of Soul Reaper play Gideon with moon boots, with Galaxy Greaves. Dude, it's crazy. Like, it's obviously super silly, and that's not like a mechanic I necessarily think needs to be in the game for like everybody, but the fact that you could have characters that would engage with verticality,
cool
that could do crazy things in the air, that would counter characters that are more grounded or make them have to take a different play style, or that would engage or kind of like, what's the word I'm looking for? It would challenge or employ a meta to change the map in ways that also introduce more verticality to the game. I think that is the selling point of Pred, right? Like, if somebody asks, well, why would I play this over Smite, for example? It's like, well, one, it's new. I think it looks way better and probably plays better than Smite, in my opinion, personally. But two, it brings this element, right? Like, and that's how you sell someone. If I'm a word of mouth marketer, I say that's why it's cool, because you have to aim up, because you have to dodge and jump and do all of these cool things.
Because this character can grab the wall and throw themselves, right? This character has a grappling hook, like that. Like, that's the kind of stuff that I would love to sell people on this game for. And it's just the kind of thing that is not in the game. Like, I know, not to bring up Overprime because it's going to make people mad, but like, Overprime just released their video for Yin. And Yin in Paragon had this ability where she threw out her whip, and if it hit an enemy or an ally, she would pull herself to them. And in Overprime, she can use that on terrain.
That's sick.
And it's awesome.
Yeah, that's sick.
It's sweet. And it's like, duh, that makes a whole lot of sense, right? And that's just something that is like just missing from this game. I mean, I could count on one hand the amount of characters that actually use verticality out of the 30
that's my
in the
point.
cast.
I think there's an opportunity to lightly build verticality in items, to heavily build verticality in kits, and to like moderately build verticality via the map design. And that's why I think you have to do it that way, because if every character is vertically enabled, then it just changes the game too much, and you kind of like power creep the shit out of characters that are grounded. So you need to have like an ebb and flow with forcing the characters that are grounded to find unique ways to engage with the map in order to fight them and use different team compositions and counters to play in that like that airspace arena. But you also need to actually bring those characters out that are engaging in that verticality to capitalize on the niche that the game it can actually stand on. So I love it. I want to end on a high note, Pinzo. I want to make sure that this is, the whole point of this is to continue to add content to the community, to do a cool show with you, to bring on guests at some point. This was just kind of like the pilot episode of what we're doing here. Again, we're going to be running this show in the last week of every month. So it's going to be hour and a half show once a month at the end of the month, where we can just kind of collect all our thoughts about things that have happened, things that might be coming up, and to, again, try to be constructive, because this note is for me specifically. I said it's always my goal to bring about good change and perspective to help Ometa and bring but that does require being hard on them. So I'm hard on the team because I think they have a lot of potential, and I think that the promise of this game is something that we can all see. We can all see what the game can be, and I just want to help it actualize that, even though I'm a bit of an asshole at times, so my bad for that. But dude, Pred is awesome. We all know what we've got here, right? Like that's the thing. I feel like if this is a joke, we're all in on it.
Yes.
Like we're all in on the fact that this game is something special, dude. I wouldn't play
the game. The game is something, man. Like I would not be playing it 11 months later if it wasn't there.
Mm-hmm. So we just got to help it get there, right?
Fingers crossed.
All right, friends. Thank you all so much for watching. Pinzo, I appreciate you, my dude.
Anytime.
Looking forward
Krashy.
to the next one. This is The Hunt. We will come back next month sometime. Date to be determined. Time to be determined. We're kind of loosey-goosey doing it. Big shout-outs and love to the Ometa team, the Predecessor community, and to Predcast. I love Predcast and what they do. Pinzo also, host on Predcast, and just want to show my appreciation for the content and the people that are doing work within this community. If you're someone that hangs out in talks and streams, fills into the games, creates the game, creates content, we love you. We appreciate you. And Pinzo, any final words?
I don't think so.
Do you want to do the typical, like, where do we find you, Pinzo?
Yeah, people know where to find me, man. I don't know. Come to my stream when you're done watching Reaper's stream,
Hell yeah, dude. That's what we like to see. Cool. Well, friends, we appreciate you, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace out.